Hey everyone, welcome back to Meta Talks. We are so excited. Now we are a part of the Metaverse Times magazine. And today we have Jamie from AmazeVR. And I'm really interested because today we're going to dig in really deeply around entertainment, the future of entertainment. How is Web3 and AR, VR, XR, there's all these words that we use, but how is VR going to be playing a big part of this? And the great thing is this company's been doing it since 2015. So Jamie, welcome to Meta Talks.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited. I love your Beastie Boys picture in the background, by the way. So, and the
Big
hat.
fan.
I was telling Jamie, I love that he's got the branded hat because I think that, I love branded options. We were talking about that earlier. But Jamie, tell everyone about AmazeVR. I would love to hear, how did you get into this, so early back in 2015, and what is your personal background?
Sure. So from a personal standpoint, I'm from the UK originally, live in LA now. I spent the first part of my career working in music in the UK at various labels like Warner's, an independent label called Rough Trade, and Atlantic Records. Actually got a first kind of insight into the early metaverse, even though it wasn't really called the metaverse then, working on a project with Regina Spektor in Second Life back in, I guess, like 2006, I would say. Moved to the US in 2013, and I worked for an agency called Fruct, which is part of IPG, the Interpublic Group, handling brand partnerships and music partnerships for clients like Bank of America, Cisco, and Sprint, working with some big artists like U2 and John Legend and a bunch of others. And I joined AmazeVR just over 18 months ago. My role there is VP of Partnerships, so I look after everything that is kind of externally facing as far as artist relations, music licensing, any kind of platform partnerships, and anything really that helps us to get the word out about what we're doing and helps to grow our business.
Yeah, and I saw the Hottieverse was what you guys launched back. Was that last year or was that this year?
Yeah, so the Hottieverse, which was our project with Megan Thee Stallion, came out in March of this year. We launched it in movie theaters to begin with as a showcase for our content. We did a 10-city tour in partnership with AMC Theaters, where we had up to 100 plus headsets in the theater at any one time. And we had a software interface that enabled us to wirelessly control those 100 headsets and broadcast the audio in the movie theater. So the fans got a kind of hybrid virtual, but also in-person experience where they get to share this kind of an intimate one-on-one performance with Megan Thee Stallion.
Now, how was that received? Because we have, and I'd love to also understand of what's the age of the person that showed up, because you have like movie theaters, I feel like it's kind of an older demographic, right? And then you have, VR headsets, which is like a younger demographic. And then obviously, Megan Thee Stallion, I don't know the exact demographic, but I'm also guessing, it's more on the younger side. So how was that received?
Yeah, great point. So that's something that we talk about and think about pretty much every day is who are the users for this technology at present and who are future users as this market grows. One of the reasons we launched this VR concert with Megan Thee Stallion in theaters was to be able to bring it to her fans. We wanted this to be something that her fans could experience. And we can't assume that they are all VR headset owners or are interested in VR necessarily, but what we do know is that they're interested in Megan Thee Stallion. So we worked very closely with her team and we did some of our own kind of data analysis to identify exactly where those fans are and who they are. And so we were quite careful in selecting which markets to go to, making sure that we were hitting those cities where there was a high proportion of Megan Thee Stallion fans. For us, it was really a way to showcase this content because, we think that you never really forget your first VR experience. And we wanted Megan's fans to see this and have a phenomenal experience with a view that, hopefully we convert some people to be long-term VR users.
You bring up an interesting point. I can remember my first concert. I'm sure you can too. So if you can remember your first VR experience and then you remember your first concert experience, which I would like to hear, do you remember your first concert?
I do. I remember my first concert without adults, without my parents or someone else's parents. I do. It was Weezer at the London Astoria in 1994, and I went crowd surfing for the first and only time in my life.
I'm guessing that went well. If it was,
it was an experience I don't want to repeat. I wear contact lenses. I used to wear glasses at that time, and I did not leave the show with my glasses, put it that way.
Hey, you know what? The good thing is you did it when you were younger. So, the recovery time is shortened. But I think this is a great point, like you're saying, because I can remember my first concert as well. I can remember even going to Woodstock 99, which was an experience in itself, thinking back to if people had the ability to experience that from all around the world, though, they don't have to physically be here. And I like that something that you guys, that you're, on the website, AmazeVR talks about is everyone gets a front row seat. And so
that's right.
How is that playing with when it comes to like experience? I've never got to experience AmazeVR, and I hope that if you come to theaters one day, I can be there, because watching the reaction videos was actually very entertaining for me, like how people react to, I know how realistic and hyper realism, but talk to us about, about more about this.
Yeah. So that's really what makes us different in our minds. And the way we film our shows and the way we film the Megan show, we have a custom 9K plus stereoscopic camera that we built, that when you are in a VR headset, the artist is right there in front of you as if they were performing for you in the room. And for fans, this is an entirely new way to experience your favorite artist. It's giving you an opportunity to see your favorite artist perform in a way that, money can't buy that experience. And for us, we're not thinking about this in terms of replacing live entertainment. We're thinking about this as an entirely new category for music, and a way that is hyper focused on building content that is designed for VR. We see this as being something that is additive to an artist's overall marketing campaign, thinking about it in terms of the music videos, the touring plan, merchandise. We have a vision that we want every artist to perform an AmazeVR show, and we would like this to be kind of part of their overall campaign, thinking about, okay, we have the music video, we have the Spotify strategy, what's our AmazeVR strategy?
Yeah, I was talking to an artist recently about how they make money, because I was kind of curious. And they mentioned, of course, that, the live concert was huge, the merchandise was huge, and a lot of that was disrupted, of course. But this is a really interesting way for them to generate revenue around the world, and not having even to focus on just local ticket sales. But like you mentioned, you could even record it, and then you can continue to make money later on. People still purchasing tickets to an event, like you said with Megan, that actually happened previously, where it's very hard to, you could watch it on TV, but it's not the same. Like watching concerts on TV is not the same. And I've used VR before, and it's incredible how lifelike the experience is. But are you talking, and are you getting a lot of artists reaching out to you now because they do see this, like you said, as an additional, could be a potentially, groundbreaking marketing aspect to add in?
Absolutely. Yeah. One of the values of VR is that feeling of presence. And from an artist perspective, their most kind of valuable commodity is their time. They tour, they can't be in every single country. And so this gives the artists an opportunity to reach fans in a way that they've never been able to do before. And the way that we work with artists is we ask a very small amount of their time to actually shoot the VR concert that then, as you say, has a lifespan forever. And we think of this, wouldn't it be amazing if there was a memento of David Bowie performing at the peak of his career, where you could see him performing at his best, and we think about that as well, thinking what is the legacy of this content that we're creating, and how can this be something that enables fans in anywhere around the world to experience it, and not just see the content, but as we develop our platform and build out our tools, how they can experience it together in a social environment as well.
I would love to hear more about that. So how does it go beyond watching it to something even more of an experience?
Yeah, that's something that we're thinking a lot about, is building out our metaverse platform, and really kind of creating a corner of the metaverse that is laser focused on music and VR concerts. And we're thinking about, what does it look like to buy a piece of merch at a concert in real life, and how does that come to life in VR? What is the digital merch equivalent of buying the t-shirt at a festival, or if you're thinking about K-pop, the light sticks that fans buy. And so that's part of it, is thinking about what's the commercial aspect of this, but also what's the social side of it. So sharing these experiences with your friends is something that is one of the best things about going to see live music, or going to see a festival, or whatever it is. So that's something that we're working on at the moment, is thinking about how we can add a social element to this content. We've done it a little bit so far. For example, with the Megan Thee Stallion show, when we ran it in movie theaters, there was a kind of gamified experience before the concert started, where fans were able to play a really fun kind of shooting type game with their friends in their section in the theater, and they were able to see the avatars of their friends in real time playing this game and competing with each other. We're in the process now of preparing the Megan Thee Stallion show, kind of reconfiguring it for an at-home VR release later this year. And we've added in additional layers of interactivity into the entire show. So this isn't just about a passive viewing experience. This is about putting yourself into the VR concert and interacting and engaging with it.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think that, most concerts or festivals, you go there too for the social, aspect of it, and be able to meet new people, like-minded, other fans. So that only makes sense. What is your opinion, Jamie, on what's the future of VR? Do you think it's going to stay, how it is? Do you think it's going to change? I mean, I know everyone's looking at coming out with new headsets, and, some people are talking about how, AR can play with having like an AR version of a headset, and mixed with like a VR. I mean, there's so many things. I know there's a lot of potential, and people are talking about like what possibly might be, not necessarily what will. But what's your opinion on the future of VR?
Yeah, I think we're obviously seeing a lot of growth in the market. Meta's new headset that they're going to be announcing next week. Pico just announced a new headset for the European and Asian markets last week. PlayStation is working on their new headset. Hopefully Apple at some point will, if the rumors are correct, come to the market with some kind of device. So there's a lot of movement in the space, and for us as a company, we've been around for 7 years. We've seen the various hype cycles of VR that with the you mentioned before, the Oculus Go and the Rift and all the various other iterations of VR that never quite happened, just because the tech perhaps wasn't quite there yet. We're starting to see the promise of what VR could be actualized. And for our side, we're focused on creating fantastic content for these new headsets. So, I mentioned that we shot the Megan show in a 9K plus camera. The headsets aren't quite there yet to capture that high fidelity, but I think at some point it will be there. And in terms of where the market's going, I think this is something that is being led by gaming. I think that there is obviously a focus in gaming in VR. You're starting to see from Meta particularly more use cases for this type of technology that cover both, enterprise, your working life, your social life, obviously. And for us, we're focused on bringing music to this new platform.
So where do you see around the world this really taking off next? Are you all focused on the U.S.? Well, obviously, right, with the launch of the Megan Thee Stallion and the movie theaters, but where else do you see in the world this really, morphing and changing, and or where is AmazeVR focusing on from a global perspective?
Yeah, US is obviously a key market for us. As a company, we are Korean founded. We were founded by a leadership team from Kakao. And so we have both an office in LA and we have an office in Korea. We recently entered into a partnership with SM Entertainment. So aligning up some artists from their roster, as well as other K-pop artists, to shoot VR concerts with in the coming months. So for us, there's a focus primarily on the US, but also very much in the Asian market as well.
I remember, I think it was back in like 2016, I was on a plane and these two people sitting next to me were watching K-pop. They didn't speak Korean though. And I was so fast. I'd never heard of it before. And I asked them, like, what, like, do you even know, like, do you understand it? And they're like, no. I'm like, that's so fascinating to me at that time. Like, this is really interesting. I love how music really transcends language and even understanding of language. And then, of course, the explosion of K-pop. And now, there's other countries. And obviously, like reggaeton and Spanish has been, popular for a long time. Now it's like huge. So it's really interesting how people from all around the world, even if they don't speak the language, really love music. And music is like, it's almost like an essential part of just being a human. Like you hear music and all of a sudden you want to dance. It's like instinctively. So it's really fascinating how you're merging the two. And I didn't realize, that the company is also in Korea as well. So it makes sense why I was reading in the news recently about, like you mentioned with SM and bringing more K-pop stars in. That's awesome. So how do you see then, are you going to see that, or what do you think when it comes to live entertainment going beyond just music? Do you see this becoming, part of like conferences or events or, other things than just music?
Well, for us, music is our focus. But I think generally speaking, what you're starting to see is many more applications for this kind of technology in different verticals. I think over the last couple of years, with a lot of attention being placed on the metaverse, Web3, NFTs, crypto, all of these different technologies that are converging to what will eventually become the metaverse. I think a lot of it over the last couple of years was driven partially by the financial speculation element of these digital assets. And some people made an awful lot of money, and other people didn't. But over the last few months, as that market has started to decline, I think what is emerging is a much more of a focus on utility. And to answer your question, I think there's much more of a focus on what are the applications for this type of technology, both in VR, AR, NFTs. How can these things be used to actually create value beyond just a gaming experience, beyond just a kind of speculation? What are the actual use cases for this? And so for us, music is, as I've said, the focus for our company. But I definitely think there's value in this type of live action VR, creating a real sense of presence with another individual in a way that you can only do in VR, or if the person was standing right next to you in the room.
Yeah, I can only imagine. We went to this movie premiere yesterday, and I can only imagine if I could. I would love to be on set of a movie, like an action movie. I know it's not as exciting than when you watch the movie for sure, when the effects, but I still would love to experience like behind the scenes things, even at a concert. I would love to be like walking with somebody, like a point of view where I'm behind the scenes. I want to know what goes on. I think people really like the feel of, you know, it's not, we know the show is curated, but then what are the behind the scenes, what goes into it? So I see a lot of, use cases and applications of taking this and almost like I would love to be able to put on a VR headset and walk around as if like I'm somebody who was there. I think it would be super fascinating. I never really thought about that until now, until we're talking. And because I think, who hasn't wanted to pay for VIP tickets where you go behind the scenes, or, you pay for a ticket and you get to meet the person. I know before it was like, writing a signature, which now could be an NFT that you get, maybe special. I think that's amazing. I was just having a conversation around, the change in NFTs, to your point, where it was that explosion of a possible investment, possibly not. Some people made money, many lost. But now it's really like, how do you actually utilize it long term? How do you make it a part of the business? And so it seems that for merchandise, I mean, that's, right now, if you want to manufacture a t-shirt, you have to manufacture a t-shirt. But if you're an artist, you can just, if you do, AmazeVR and you have a concert, you have an NFT that is pretty inexpensive to create. This could really generate a lot of higher profit margins and revenue. My question though would be, do you see artists maybe cutting out some of the middle people that are involved with their management or day-to-day functions, because they can go maybe directly to AmazeVR, put on a concert, launch their own merch, their NFTs? They don't really they might not need a lot of people in the middle now working with them. Or do you see maybe they need more people?
For us, we want to work with the music industry, and we are working with the music industry. And so from our perspective, it's about collaborating with the labels, the publishers, the artist management companies to bring more value to the music industry and to the artist business model through what we're creating. In general, though, I think what you're seeing is the labels are being quite proactive in terms of building out their Web3 divisions. Universal has its own kind of Web3 label now, and is doing a project with Bored Apes, for example. I think it's called Kingship, kind of like a digital artist that's centered around those NFTs. And I think it's less about the artists looking to cut out those existing players, but figuring out how the existing rights holders and the rights that they have with those artists can be leveraged to capture value in Web3 and everything like that. Obviously, I think that there are opportunities for independent artists to capture value through Web3, whether it's creating NFTs as a new delivery mechanism for new music or their art or whatever it may be. And there are lots of platforms that are enabling that. But I don't see it as being a shift away from traditional rights ownership and copyright holders. I think it's more of an evolution of the dynamic between major labels, top creators, and more independently minded artists. And I think now there is the opportunity for artists to do that. But I think in most cases, the really successful artists are still part of major labels.
Great answer, Jamie. That was good. That makes total sense. I'd like to get one last question. is there anything about the future, just thinking future technology, that concerns or scares you?
Uh,
And the reason I ask while you're thinking is I've been watching a lot about deep fake and
yeah,
AI. And I'm thinking about artists and deep fake, and it's quite interesting. And sometimes that scares me a little bit, more on like the deep fake side, but also just how people's relationships will be, if they never leave their house again. But then again, younger generations are kind of used to that with gaming anyways. So I'd love to get your,
yeah.
thoughts. If nothing scares you, then, totally fine. But I'm curious if you're scared or concerned or thinking about, like, I wonder how this is going to be in the future.
Yeah, there's two things that I think about, and I think generally speaking, it's much easier for us to imagine a dystopian future for all of this than it is to imagine a utopian future for all of this. We've seen all the movies where this stuff goes horribly wrong and the robots take over, and that stuff is easy to imagine. But more practically speaking, two of the things that I think about, one is generally as an industry, metaverse industry, whatever you want to call it. I think we're in they, us, the industry are in a unique position where a lot of the rules of what the metaverse can become are being formulated in real time. And a lot of the downside of a Web2 model, when you think about things like misinformation, radicalization, privacy issues, security issues, all of those problems exist in a Web 2 world. I think there's a unique opportunity to try and craft an internet of space in the metaverse that has at least attempts to solve for those problems. I think if that isn't addressed early as this infrastructure is being built, then what worries me is that it gets amplified in a metaverse environment. All of those same issues and problems that we have today continue and perhaps are exacerbated in the metaverse. So that's one thing I think is kind of incumbent on everybody in the space to think about and how to solve. The other thing that concerns me, and you kind of alluded to it a little bit, is my kids, like most people's kids of sort of 10, 9, 10, 11 are on Roblox and in Minecraft. And, my kids loved watching like the 21 Pilots VR concert and in Roblox, and the Lil Nas X VR concert in Roblox. So for them, a lot of their formative entertainment experiences are happening in these quasi metaverse environments. And as a general kind of concern, I wonder what impact that all of this stuff has on these young minds, spending so much time in front of a screen, so much time focused on your digital self and engaging with people. On the other hand, I think it's incredibly positive, during the period when everybody was stuck at home and these devices were a lifesaver. And a lot of my kids' social life during that time had to take place online, but that behavior has continued. And I think as we think about the metaverse as being an extension of our, personal identities and how that's manifested digitally and what our digital lives look like, I think it's that generation that's really going to bring the metaverse, the idea of what we think the metaverse is, to reality, because that type of behavior in terms of your digital identity, purchasing digital goods, socializing, engaging, interacting in these digital environments is native behavior for that generation. But it does concern me a little bit, the amount of screen time and all of those issues that everyone has.
I guess history repeats itself. I can only imagine what older generations were thinking, you know, in the 90s, early 2000s when the internet came out and when gaming consoles came out. It's funny even
Yeah.
when music went on CD, like it's funny, like every generation looks at, you know, younger generations as
Yeah,
that.
totally. I
Yeah,
mean, with everything, it's you know, any new technology. When television came out, everyone was panicking that having this box in the corner of the room is going to poison our brains, which I guess it kind of has to a certain extent. But um, you know, it's nothing new, that fear of the future. But
makes sense. No, I really enjoy that, Jamie. This has been great today. So I know people can go to AmazeVR.com, AMAZEVR.com. Anywhere else that you want them to look or to join or to check things out?
no, AmazeVR.com and AmazeVR social channels. And thank you for having me on. It's been a great conversation.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. Until next time.